Welcome back to London Real. I am Brian Rose, and this week we have legendary bodybuilder Dorian Yates, who won the Mr. Olympia contest 6 times in a row from 1992 to 97. And this is a truly special episode. We have 90 minutes where we really get an in-depth feel for who the man is, his career as a bodybuilder, and more importantly, really, his journey after his career was abruptly ended by some very serious injuries. And it was just such a pleasure to talk to the 50-year-old Dorian Yates. I don't know what it would have been like speaking with a 35-year-old, but I think we just got a great snapshot into just an impressive man, an impressive human being. You know, for me, this ranks right up there with Graham Hancock, with George Galloway, with Sebastian Foucault, with some of the great interviews we've had here on London Real. And I get a lot of people asking me, what are you guys doing? You got the ayahuasca confession from Nick, you have Dr. Rachel Armstrong, a scientist, and then you've got a bodybuilder. Where are you guys going with this? You know what? We don't know where we're going. That's the fun part. And each one of these people, I think we can learn something from. So that's what we're doing here at London Real. If you want to check out any of our back episodes, you can go to londonreal.tv and click on the episode section, and it's got every single one of them. I think we got 66 episodes now. Or you can go to our YouTube channel, London Real TV, or of course you can search them on iTunes. So check those out. I want to give a shout out to our brothers out there in the world, the new reelers. As you guys might have known, when we were on Joe Rogan, we threw it out and said, if anybody wants to start a podcast, we would support you and back you, the best we could. We don't like to get into details and show people the A, B's, and C's of making a podcast, but we are there to support you if you can actually make a pilot. If you can do that, then you show us that you're serious. And we just had the boys from Melbourne in Australia, Melbourne Real, dropped their pilot a few weeks ago. The Wichita Real guys have 3 episodes so far. Twin Cities Real has 1, and we just got Austin Real dropped on us. So that's awesome. I've had some other talks from, I think, a guy in Japan. We got potentially Oslo in Norway. We got some guys in Ireland talking. So we love all this stuff, and I'll be retweeting anyone who can send us a pilot that looks decent and has the spirit of London Real. So please think about doing it. It'll change you. It'll change your community. It'll change the way you relate to the world. So that's awesome. Next week, we've got Mr. Tim Ferriss, author of The 4-Hour Workweek, which I was reading 10 years ago. His new book is The 4-Hour Chef, and it's not just a cooking book. I think it's almost a mastery book about how to train your mind to do things. And Tim's always got big things going on, and he's always got fascinating things to say. I am super excited to have him here next week. We will be giving away signed copies of his book. If you submit a question to our Facebook that we use on the air, you'll get a copy. Also, if you tweet after you see the episode, and if you tweet the best quote from the episode and include a link to the YouTube video of him, we'll choose the best one and we'll send out, I think it's 2 or 3 copies of the signed book to those people. So get involved. Loving the fact that Tim's going to come with us. As usual, this episode is sponsored by Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain's a nootropic that basically makes your synapses fire better in your brain. It's a combination of all sorts of different specific vitamins and minerals. I take 1 a day. It keeps me sharp. If I'm gonna work out and eat protein powder, then why not do something for my brain? So if you go to londonreal.tv, you can click on the banner there. It'll take you right to Onnit Labs and check out some of that. Support the show. They also have Shroom Tech Sport, which Nick and I really like for the cordyceps mushrooms. If you're training hard, any kettlebells, jiu-jitsu, anything anaerobic, that's your friend. And of course, they have the Hemp Force protein. It's a great non-way way of getting some protein up in your shizzle. So check that out. Last but not least, if you want to help us out right now, go to iTunes and write us a quick review. If you want to take it to the next level, send us an email at info@londonreal.tv. If you got 10 hours a week, we can use anyone in the world just to help us promote the show. We've always got things going on here, and it's a great learning opportunity for you. And I've gotten so many awesome emails on the back of Nick's ayahuasca confession, the people that were really touched by his story, and it was such a moving account. and I appreciate all the emails we're getting in and the support people want to give. So enough of all that. Now I give you Mr. Dorian Yates. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. This is Nick Gabriel. And joining us today is Mr. Dorian Yates, who is a professional bodybuilder and a 6-time winner of the Mr. Olympia title. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. Something different, you know.
Thanks for being here, man.
It's a real pleasure having you here. You know, we've had a lot of different people on the show before. We've had members of parliament. We've had best-selling authors like Graham Hancock. We've had Olympic athletes. But when I told people that Dorian was going to be on the show, it's like, especially males, like this weird sense of like awe comes across them. And they talk about you almost in like a supernatural way. And I was wondering if you could explain how your work in bodybuilding, why it has such a visceral, almost like carnal response from people like that.
Well, I started competing in UK back in the 80s and quickly worked my way through the ranks to go to compete in the professional bodybuilding, which is, or was, and probably still is, basically an American-based sport. Most of the athletes and the whole industry is from the States. So I think the fact that I came from the UK, where we have, you know, basic facilities and the sport's not that big here, and I was able to go from the UK and actually still training in the UK and going to beat the best guys in the world who mostly were US based. I think that inspired a lot of people, and a lot of guys that go to the gym during the 90s when I was at the top, when I was Mr. Olympia. Of course, I'm in all the magazines, so I get tremendous feedback from people telling me that, you know, I was the first kind of guy that they saw in magazines and the gyms and everything, and inspired them to go to the gym and to train. And of course it is, you know, it's a masculine sport, I guess, right? You know, you want to get bigger and stronger so you can lift the most weights and build the best physique and everything. So it is male, you know, very male sport, I guess. So perhaps that's why you get the reaction.
Think about this. This guy sitting next to us in our studio was the best built human being on the planet for a large portion of the 1990s.
Yeah, that's...
Doesn't that blow your mind?
That does kind of blow my mind.
Yeah. And not only was I unique because I came from UK and previously all the champions were in the States, trained in the States and everything like that, I came along with a totally new method of training, which was was against the grain. Pretty much everything I do has been against the grain, but it's worked for me. So my training approach and my training philosophy was much different from the people that came before me. So we're spending much less time in the gym, but the workouts were very, very intense and brutal. So before, people are spending maybe 2 hours in the gym 6 days a week and so on. But my belief was, and still is, that that's counterproductive. You need to go in and give your body a very intense, sharp kind of shock for a short period of time. So probably less than an hour in the gym and 3 or 4 times a week. So that was totally against the convention. But the physique that I was able to build with that kind of training was literally reshaped the sport. You know, it was a huge leap ahead, and kind of a Roger Bannister moment. You know, in running, when he was the first guy to break the 4-minute mile, whatever, and then once he achieved that, the people saw that it was achievable. Then, you know, more people came along that was able to do that. So I think I had that kind of effect in bodybuilding, and a huge effect on the way people approach the sport, nutritionally, training-wise, and everything. So it's more than Dorian Yates, you know, the great physique, winning contests. It's the influence I had on the sport and kind of a no bullshit approach, you know, that I think people appreciated.
Yeah, you know, speaking of your no bullshit approach, I remember reading an interview with you when I was maybe 16 or 17. It's when I first really got into working out, and it was a transcribed interview in a magazine that you had given live just after Mr. Olympia, and some guy in the audience said, Bill Phillips recommends you do this, and you just said to him, well, if you want to look like Bill Phillips, then go ahead and do that. And I thought that was just fantastic.
That's pretty much, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
You know?
This is your high intensity training, like
Yeah,
system that
it's
you
very
created, right?
intense and heavy, but short. You know, it's not bodybuilding is not an endurance sport. You know, guys were spending 2 hours in the gym. They were breaking themselves down as much as building themselves up. So, yeah, it's a short. It's very intense. It's hard work, but it's not a long period of time. And then as a bodybuilder, I mean, the rest of your job's outside the gym, and that's very taxing mentally and so on, because you've got to eat the correct food at the correct time. You've got to get enough rest, all these things. So it's pretty much, although you're not in the gym 24 hours a day, it is pretty much a 24-hour day job. You know, you never leave it behind. You play soccer, you play golf, you throw your golf clubs in the cupboard, and that's it for the day. You're finished. But bodybuilding, it's, you know, it's with you all the time. You've got to be conscious. You've got to what you're eating. You've got to eat at certain times to get the most out of your training and so on.
Is it the hard part, resisting those temptations, resisting the pint or resisting the cakes? Is that the harder part of the job?
I would say, for me anyway, for me going in the gym and lifting heavy weights, it's hard work, but that's fun, right? Yeah. But to actually fight against all your instincts and everything that's coming from your body, this is more the contest phase. In the off season, where you're building more strength, you're building more muscle, you're building your body up. Your diet's somewhat still restricted, but you're eating quite a lot of food. When you're getting ready for a contest, and you're trying to strip the body fat down and maintain as much muscle mass as you can, which is basically a contradictory goal. And so you've got to restrict your calories whilst, you know, most athletes, if they're going to train harder for a competition or do more training, they're going to eat more. That's natural, right? With bodybuilding, you're doing more training, you do more cardio exercise, you're still training hard with the weights and everything, but you've got to eat less food. So, you know, every instinct in your body is telling you, you must eat, and you're saying, no, I'm not. So it's a challenge, which I always enjoy the challenge. So that's the toughest part. That's what separates the men from the boys. You see a lot of big guys walking around, but how many big guys get into shape and win contests? That's a different matter. That's tough, and that's, you know, you've got to have a really firm goal in order to be able to deny the short-term pleasures. That's pretty much the advice I give to people. Mm-hmm. You must have a goal if you're going to give up, you know, you're going to be able to give up the short-term kind of pleasures and so on for the long-term goal. Of course, most people are not competitive bodybuilders. A lot of people go to the gym. I just think you need to have a goal in mind, whatever that is. You want to lose a bit of fat, you want to build muscle, you want to put 10 pounds on your bench press. It's always good to have those goals in mind. And that, you know, that pretty much goes anything you do in life. You know, the things I've learned from bodybuilding, the discipline and so on, you can apply that to anything, to business, to pretty much anything in life.
And you're a big fan of writing goals down and being specific about the goals.
Absolutely. I started training bodybuilding back in '83, and I retired in 1997 from competitive bodybuilding. And I've got every workout written down from 1983 to 1997, every single workout. And I got them all in exercise books and everything. It was funny because I was showing them to my son about a year ago and showing, like, this is what I did. You know, I could see every workout, and also writing down all the different diets I did. If I changed my workouts, I would do one thing at a time so I could analyze, is this good or is this bad? If it works, I keep it. If it didn't, I threw it out. And eventually I got a game plan together, you know.
Is that expression, that is measured improves? And I guess you're the living embodiment of that, right?
Yeah, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep it. If it's broke, throw it out and don't worry about it, you know. Just move along.
You know, I was reading Schwarzenegger's autobiography recently, and he said when he first started lifting, seeing the way different people would lift really helped him out a lot, because he would think, I can only do this, and he'd see a guy blast through, 10 more reps than he thought, or an extra 100 kilos on the calf raise, and he'd be like, that's an aha moment. But these guys were all together in Venice Beach, pushing each other.
Yeah.
Now you got you in Birmingham, in the middle of nowhere, without a lot of outside stimulus. How do you come up with the system, and how do you get all these ideas?
I think because I'm very much an individual, and perhaps that's why bodybuilding appealed to me. And you're not on a team, right? It's just you. And bodybuilding is not Birmingham's not a big bodybuilding town, as you can imagine. So there was only a couple of little gyms there, and a few guys that were competing and so on. But I was confident enough to educate myself by reading as many books as I could on nutrition, on training, and then going to the gym and actually trying things out. And I was pretty, picked it up pretty good. If something wasn't working, I could sense it quite quickly. And of course, all the guys in the gyms who are older than me and more experienced and everything at the time were like, "What the hell are you doing? This kid doesn't know what he's doing." He's, you know. But I wasn't swayed by that. I just stuck to my guns, and the results spoke for themselves.
And you didn't have a coach, really?
I didn't have a coach. It's quite popular now to have a coach and a nutritionist and all this kind of stuff. But for me, that was the fun part of it, you know, is learning. It's your body. If you listen to it, really nobody should know better than you, you know, because you're living inside it. So you should be able to sense which kind of training works better for you, and nutrition and everything. Not to say that you shouldn't listen to other people. I listened to a lot of people, but I took what I could, and ultimately I decided whether this was working or not working. So having a coach was not something I would be comfortable with, because I couldn't just follow blindly what somebody else did. Other people, they want that and they need that and they like that, you know, like you're going to train on this day, you're going to do this, and you're going to eat that, and they feel that they're an athlete, and they're going to do their job, and the coach is going to tell them what to do. And of course, Americans are much, they're used to that, because at school, you know, you have a coach for basketball, football, or whatever. So it's a little bit different, and that's very popular now to have a coach. But for me, the whole appeal was this is an individual sport, and I'll be successful or I'll fail. It'll be down to me, you know.
A lot of people were intimidated by the Americans, quote unquote, right?
Yeah, when I started, everyone was like, you know, they were talking to me as if these guys had 10 arms and 10 legs or something. You listen, they're like me and you. They're from the States, and they have better gyms there. Yeah, they have access to better nutrition and supplements and so on. Not so much now. Now it's more even, but back then it was a big difference. But they're men. They've got 2 arms, 2 legs, and they're like me and you, and they lift weights. And why not? And so I didn't accept that. And then it was when I got to be British champion, so I was the best guy over here. And that qualified me to be a professional and go and compete in the States against the big guys over there in the professional ranks. And I didn't get much positivity then. It was like, oh, okay, so now you're kind of on a par physically with them, but there's a lot of politics involved, and you know, you don't know the judges. Your picture's never been in an American magazine. Nobody knows you. All this is going to go against you. So if I'd have listened to that and take that as gospel, it probably would have gone against me, or I'd have gone with the wrong attitude. But my attitude was, look, I'm going to go there. I'm going to be the best that I can be, and if I'm really that good, they can't hide me away somewhere. People are going to notice. They're going to see. It's going to be obvious, you know. I went to my first professional show in New York, and it was the first time I've been to the States as well, you know. It was, you know, when I was training in Birmingham, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't have a car. I didn't have money for a car. I didn't have money for nothing. Spent half the day on the public transport, going from the gym to work and back again, and all that time I was just dreaming about what I could do with my physique and what I could, you know, how I could win and everything. Anyway, I went to the States in New York, and there was a big lineup there. I think it was 26, 27 guys, and a lot of guys who are well known. They had publicity in the magazines and all that stuff. And I was there for 5 minutes, and the New York crowd, well, they were known to be very vocal. You know, they're not shy people in New York, right?
Mm-hmm. What was the name of the
so I was wondering, like, you know, how's the crowd going to be and stuff. Within 5 minutes, from nobody in the auditorium knowing my name, I guess, you know, we walked out and the whispers went round, and after 5 minutes people must have known what my name was, because I started to hear Dorian, Dorian, Dorian. That was amazing, you know, for me.
That's insane.
Coming from the UK and not really knowing what to expect and all that stuff. So at the end of the day, I got second place there out of 26 guys and a lot of experienced professionals. So I kind of smiled to myself and said, you know what, it's all bullshit, you know, like, if you're good enough, you're good enough, right? Of course there's politics and this and that, it's part of life, right? But if you're good enough, you know, you rise to the top. You rise to the top, man.
Is bodybuilding fairly transparent? I mean, if you got the 27 guys on stage, I mean, will the best guy ultimately win or place in the top 3?
Well, you know, who is the best guy?
Yeah.
It's a matter of opinion, right? Because it's subjective. You have 7 people judging there, and what they'll do is, They have 7 scores, and then they'll eliminate the highest and the lowest. So you end up with 5 scores from 5 people. And we have a criteria, for the judging process that, it's bodybuilding. So you're obviously looking for muscle mass, but the muscle mass should be proportionate. So it should be proportionately distributed. And of course, contest condition in bodybuilding means very low body fat, extremely low body fat.
What kind of percentages are we talking?
I'm not sure that there's really an accurate way to measure body fat. I think underwater weighing is probably the most accurate, but I never had access to that. We used to use skin fold calipers, but I found once you get below a certain level, they don't read that well anyway. And ultimately, it's like you got judges and the crowd sitting here and looking at you on stage, so they don't know what your body fat is. They can't measure it. So, but I would guess that my body fat was somewhere around getting down to 3%. It was super low. I remember a couple of contests when I was professional at first. I was walking around backstage, and backstage is a wooden floor like this, right? And literally my feet were really hurting me, and I was limping, and people were like, "You okay, dude? You cramping up or something? You dehydrated?" I'm like, "No, my fucking feet are killing me." And I couldn't understand why my feet were really hurting me until I looked in an anatomy book and I saw there's a fat pad under the heel and under your ball of your feet. There's a pad there, cushioning. And I guess, my body fat was that low that this pad of fat on my feet was actually getting depleted.
How insane is that, dude?
It's just so dangerously low levels, aren't there?
It's a temporary thing, though. You're not trying to maintain that for any period of time. That definitely wouldn't be healthy. You're peaking for a contest. Probably take 12 or 14 weeks of specific dieting and training to get your body fat down to that level. And trust me, it doesn't stay that long. It doesn't stay that low for long, a week after the contest, most guys have gone up 10, 15 pounds easily.
What was the one meal that you looked forward to the most, or what was the one you always wanted to eat the most at the end of the
contest? It was nothing exotic. It was usually a really good steak, which was, most all the contests were in the States, so you can always find a good steak there, right? Now here you can't, but in the States you can. Good basic steak and fries and a good ice cream and stuff like that, But that's what I had, but your mind plays tricks with you. I used to fantasize about all kind of strange food that I never really would eat, or even when I finished my diet, I don't want it now, but because I guess because your dietary fat intake and so on is so low that you start craving spicy, fatty foods and stuff. And I used to have dreams, I remember one day waking up and just in a panic in the middle of the night because I had a dream that I went downstairs and ate a load of sausages. I was like, no, I didn't really, did I? It wasn't possible. I didn't have sausages in the house, but that's the kind of tricks your mind plays on you. And nighttime is very tough when you're dieting for a bodybuilding contest because it's hard to sleep properly. Because basically you go to sleep, your body wakes, if your blood sugar drops below a certain level, it's like an alarm system. You got to wake up, you got to eat. So the sleep is very, it's kind of broken sleep because you get that throughout the night.
What's your diet like when you're cutting, like those last 4 weeks?
Well, keep in mind that when I was competing, I was around 260, 270 pounds. So if I looked at my diet that I was eating for a contest, it's probably more calories than I eat on a daily basis right now. But we're talking about 4,000 calories. But in the off season, I'll be like 6,000, 7,000 calories. So it's quite a drop gradually from that level. And of course, you carry massive amounts of muscle tissue and you're working out and everything. So there's a lot of demand on your body. But it's over a period of time. I generally try to lose 2 or 3 pounds a week over about 12 weeks or something like that, Typical diet was mainly lean proteins like egg whites, chicken breasts, protein shakes, maybe a lean beef. Those were the protein sources. And then the fats were fairly low. Some carbohydrates from oatmeal, brown rice, and a lot of vegetables, obviously, broccoli, spinach, things like that. A little bit of fruit, but not too much.
Hey, Dorian, sooner or later, Brian and I had to bring this up. You tweeted out on a couple of days ago that you were going to pull no punches on the show. And we're not sensationalist people. We're not gonna try and trick you, but we really would like an honest account of steroid use in bodybuilding.
No problem, man.
Can you tell us about it? Can you tell us what you use? Can you tell us what the guys are using nowadays? I mean, is there anything you'd like to start with?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think the first Mr. Olympia was 1965, I believe. Larry Scott won the first Mr. Olympia in 1965. And Larry Scott's on record saying that he used steroids for that. So steroids have been used in bodybuilding and other sports since the early 60s. One of the earliest steroids available is Dynabol, and this was actually produced for the US athletes, you know, because the Eastern Bloc had their
equivalent.
They had their equivalent. So the US developed this, and that's pretty much how it got developed. And you know, what are steroids, first of all, and how do they work? You know, steroids are derivatives of testosterone, which is a male hormone, gives you your male characteristics, but it also has ability to build and repair tissue. So they used to give it to people, for instance, in hospital situations, if they got burns and so on, because the tissue is damaged and it needs help to repair more quickly. So that's what bodybuilders use steroids for. Athletes, any athletes where increased speed and strength is required, trust me, they are using them. Yeah, just that bodybuilders is maybe more of a minor sport. We don't have major sponsors that we need to, you know, keep happy and all that kind of stuff. So we can be more open about it and just say, oh yeah, we use them. But trust me, they use in other sports. Maybe not as much in some sports, but they're used in a. You got people that are in a competitive sport. You got competitive people, and they're going to do whatever is required to perform the best in their sport. So steroids are a derivative of testosterone, a male hormone. So what the scientists tried to do is minimize the masculine effects and maximize the anabolic or the repair building effects of testosterone. That's what steroids are, basically. And yeah, they've been used in bodybuilding, they've been used in track and field and American football and baseball and whatever, all these sports. They've been used since the mid-60s, early 60s. So there's nothing new under the sun here. You know, you're able to train harder and recover more quickly. I think you know your body gets to a point with training where to increase the response, you've got to increase the training and make it more stressful. It gets to a point where your body just kind of plateaus because it can't recover from this stress anymore. So it just plateaus because it's your body's intelligent, right? If I keep responding, this guy keeps putting stress on me, and it's going to be never ending. So at some point, it's going to find a balance, and just you're not going to respond anymore. And that's where steroids work. They can get you over that barrier because your body, you're increasing your body's ability to recover from the stress. So, a lot of people look at bodybuilders and, look at these guys, they just take steroids because we look so different, huge muscle mass, veins, and no body fat for competition. We don't look that all the time. That's a competition look. But because we look so different, it's obvious. You can point a finger and say, look at this guy, he takes steroids. But a little skinny 10-stone guy that zips around mountains all day long in the Tour de France, he looks like a normal dude walking down the street. But trust me, those guys are using as much pharmaceuticals as any other sport, So they're used in all sports, pretty much. It's just the degrees.
Well, I'm really interested in both the positive and the negative effects. Like when you were in hard competition training and you were doing cycles of Deca or Dianabol, whatever it was you were using. I know you were one of the, it's my understanding, I don't know if it's true, I'd like your answer. You were one of the first bodybuilders to experiment with growth hormone and...
Well, I don't think so. I used growth hormone in the early 90s and it had been used before that.
Okay.
I don't really think so. Growth hormone is another thing. Growth hormone can increase muscle mass and minimize body fat, but it's not, just because of the name, growth hormone, it sounds like it's, but combined with steroids, I think it took everything to a different level. Okay. Schwarzenegger and those guys in the 70s, they were just using steroids. When the growth hormone came in, I think it allowed people to get, to help them to get to a higher level. Perhaps it had an influence, but not huge,
Okay, so I mean, I'm quite interested to know, like you're in your competition phase, you're putting this stuff on your body, and I mean, personally, I don't make any judgments on that. I think you did what you had to do to peak in your sport. I'd just like to know what kind of things you experienced. Obviously, you became bigger and stronger and you healed more quickly. But were there any negatives? Did you ever get bad mood swings or what?
You know, I guess that every drug there's negatives, but I can only speak from personal experience. For me, I took steroids on and off, you know, on and off. From when I was competing at amateur competitions, you know, British Championship level, up into professional level from 85 to 97 when I retired. So that's 12 years of fairly consistent use. And of course, athletes don't use the recommended dose of steroids. They use way more than their recommended dose. But I can say in all that period of time, I did probably get some side effects like water retention, some acne. Yes, your aggression levels definitely are higher, but it depends what you do with that aggression. You know, I utilized it for my training in the gym. You're more positive, you're more aggressive. That's great for training. But, you know, if you're out somewhere and you have a few pints and you're in a club or something, it's probably not a good thing, you know. And I've seen people that work in that environment, work on the doors and things like that, they get themselves into trouble, you know, because of this. But it varies again from one person to another. We all know that alcohol can make people, you know, lower their inhibitions and make them more aggressive. And, you know, one guy can have a few pints and turn into a total aggressive asshole. Somebody else could be totally chilled, you know, so it depends on the individual.
Because, you know, the mainstream media would have us believe that, you know, you say you cycled steroids for 12 years and you should have like a horn growing out of your forehead now, you know, but you look like a relatively healthy guy. You look better than my dad did when he was 15.
I got to say, of any pharmaceutical drugs that you could take for 12 years, way over the dosage that's recommended, that's going to be a very mild drug. I mean, this is a hormone, you know. I've got a friend who is now looking at a kidney transplant, and because he destroyed both of his kidneys. And he's a bodybuilder, and I asked him, no, it wasn't through steroids. I don't know anybody that's had, you know, you'd have to really, really super abuse it and take the piss before you'd get anything severe side effects. This guy is talking about having a kidney transplant and losing his kidneys because he took Nurofen. And Nurofen is an over-the-counter drug. You know, if you get a bottle of aspirin from the pharmacy now and drink that and take a whole bottle of aspirin, it'll burn through your stomach line and you'll die. You know, Nurofen just destroyed the guy's kidneys. And these are things you can get over the counter. You know, so that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit, I think.
So hypothetical scenario, you mentioned you have a son. He came to you and said, Dad, like, I'm thinking of doing a cycle. I mean, you'd be cool with that?
Well, he's 28 years old, so that's already happened. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you decide, I tell people, look, if you're thinking about it, look at all the facts. Get as much information as you can, factual information. I mean, when I started doing it in the mid-'80s, there were a couple of underground books that were out there. I mean, photocopied. Underground steroid book from Dan Duchesne, that was probably the only thing out. And then there was another book, Anabolic Steroids in Sports, by Dr. James Wright, who, and both these guys I actually met as well. That was about it. I mean, there's no internet. No, you know, there's just gym rumors and stuff. And actually back in the 80s, we were very cautious because we did think, shit, this stuff, you know, I've heard it can damage your liver and all these things. And I was very lucky that I had a doctor that supervised all my blood tests and everything throughout the years. And there was never anything in those blood tests for results for him to show any concern and say, hey, you know, you got to give it a break or you should stop doing this and everything. But if you've ever seen a film called Super Size Me about a guy that ate McDonald's 3 times a day, after he did that for 2 weeks, his blood results were so off the chart, his doctor was begging him to stop.
Yeah, it's true.
So 2 weeks of eating McDonald's 3 times a day was much worse than me taking steroids for 12 years.
That's interesting.
Did you ever have a hard time sourcing them? Did that ever affect your training?
No. It was, you know, they were freely available back in the 80s and 90s, and there's less availability now because in the 80s and 90s what you had was steroids that were produced by legitimate pharmaceutical companies, and there was a lot on, you know, floating around. Now that's pretty much dried up, and all the steroids available now, at least the great majority of them, they're black market, they're underground. So they're made in underground labs. There might be good, they might not be.
Would you take roids, Brian?
Well, I mean, I was never trying to get huge, you know, but
Just naturally huge.
yeah, right. It just seems so dangerous because it's like in this sport and in many sports, people are going to take them because they're competitive. But there's no science, there's no direction. You're getting them from the guy in the locker room, and then you're tripling it because you're an intense,
you're not sure,
competitive person. And like, what's the solution to that problem?
I mean, there's a bigger problem now because you don't know really what you're getting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually I guess they're made in sterile circumstances most of the time, but it's not a pharmaceutical company, so you can never be sure of that. And because it's not controlled and it's a profit business, then of course people are going to be cutting corners and they're probably not getting, some of the doses that I hear about people taking now. I mean, it just freaks me out. It's scary. But then I'm thinking, but are they really taking that much? Because perhaps what they're taking is only 50% strength or something. Perhaps that explains it.
To me, it's another example of how government intervention and crackdown fucks things up. Like the war on drugs just made shittier drugs, like, you know what I mean, through underground sources. If everything was just regulated and you were taxed on your steroids the same way you could be regulated and taxed on the marijuana joint you buy in Amsterdam, it would be a way better system for everyone.
It would be way better if all drugs were non-criminalized.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Or you take away a lot of problems.
How do you think it should be treated in other sports, like the Tour de France you were talking about earlier, Olympics? I mean, do you think we need to get to a point in the future where steroids are allowed and they're regulated and tested?
My opinion is that, the guys should be able to do what they want to do, because the media's like pointing fingers at people and, oh, look, this guy's a cheat. But how is he a cheat when everyone else is on the same playing field, on the same level? And, Lance Armstrong now, what a tremendous individual that is. And now he's getting his name, they're trying to drag it through the mud because he used EPO and stuff but so was everybody else using it. So what?
Yeah, I had that realization the other day. It came out about Lance, and I was like, oh, he's on drugs. And then I woke up the next day, and I was like, so was everyone else. And he got up the hill.
But he's still the champion, right?
Because he pushed himself.
And we got this saying in bodybuilding, like if you took the steroids away, the guy that's number one would still be number one. He might be 20 pounds lighter, but it'd still be better than the other guys. So it's like whatever percent it gives you, it gives it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think very few people are training in their particular sport, and they think, oh, if steroids are going to be the answer for me, what happens is they reach the plateau you spoke of, and they take steroids so that they can train harder, so that they can do more work.
Well, when I started in the sport in the 80s, anyone that was taking steroids at that point was a serious competitive bodybuilder, and it was something you considered seriously. I didn't take any till I was doing my first competition. I wanted to learn about training, I wanted to learn about nutrition, and get something out of it. Now, there's way more people that take steroids now. It goes across all sections of society. You see people in the movies now that obviously are using steroids. People in hip hop. It's fashionable then to have a physique. These guys are all using steroids. High school
kids now in the
High
States.
School kids. I got people that come in my gym. They never ever have any intention of going into a bodybuilding contest, but they just see it as a shortcut to get the physique and the look that they want to get. Personally, my advice would be, unless you're competing, I wouldn't really consider it. But times have changed now, and now it's everybody knows about steroids, right?
One of our fans asked about some of the Weider magazines, the muscle magazines, and how they give training advice, but they don't ever make reference to the drugs. And it's almost like this big elephant that's in the room when they read these magazines.
But isn't that the same with all the sports?
Like
don't we watch the Olympics and pretend it's all it's all good and nobody's using any drugs or anything unless they get a positive drug test?
Yeah,
absolutely not the case.
I think it's for me it's quite a difficult thing because when you're a young kid and you're 15 and you're reading a bodybuilding magazine and you read how Ronnie Coleman is doing 30 supersets, but he's taking this whey protein. And then you want to go and emulate that. And you wonder why you can't walk for 3 days afterwards. It doesn't explicitly say Ronnie Coleman is also taking this stack of steroids, etc.
Well, that used to be the case, and now I write for a magazine called Muscular Development. It's probably one of the biggest magazines in the sport, maybe bigger than what used to be the Weider magazines, which were Flex and Muscle and Fitness. And I got my column in there, And I think I'm the first guy, or I'm the only guy, professional, definitely the only Mr. Olympia that I wrote an article in there about steroids and was totally honest. I even listed what I used, how I used it, what my opinions were and everything, because I thought, listen, you know, the best policy is just to be honest. But I understand the dilemma, because the question I ask myself is, if I'm totally honest and I put all this stuff down, am I going to be encouraging some kid that's young that shouldn't be doing this yet? But surely it's better to just put it out there and people can make their own decisions, you know.
I agree with you. 100%.
And I was able to do that, and the magazine had no problem with that. Where in the past that would have been, you know, it would have been a no-no. Because the Weider empire wanted to present this image of bodybuilding, and they didn't want us to talk about the steroids, you know.
You once said training, genetics, nutrition, steroids, in that order.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, without the training, let's put it this way. If you sit on your ass at home and watch TV and take steroids, what's going to happen? Nothing. You might get a bit bloaty and hold a bit of water. Nothing's going to happen. But if you just trained and didn't take any steroids and, you know, just ate a normal diet, something would happen, right? You would get some response. And so therefore, training is more important than steroids, you know? Because if you just trained and you didn't take steroids, you would get some results. If you just took steroids and trained, you wouldn't get any results. You know, steroids don't build muscle. Let's get that right. They repair damage. You've got to go to the gym to create that damage and lift some weights in the first place.
Yeah, one of the quotes of yours that I read quite recently, I hadn't read it before. You said that genetics can be broken through hard training. Do you still believe that?
Genetics can't be broken. You can't change your genetics. Maybe it was a misquote, but a guy, let's say you got a guy that's super gifted. Somebody who's not as gifted as him can make up the difference through hard work.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much my point. I'm sure there were guys that I competed against who had phenomenal physiques, but they were not anywhere near as dedicated as I was.
You just outworked them, basically.
I just outworked them, yeah. If they worked as hard as me, and I've been recording saying this, there's a couple of guys that worked as hard as me and as dedicated as me and as consistent as me. I mean, it's not just about training hard for a couple of months here. We're talking about the results of consistency, of 10 years of dedication, day in, day out, absolutely getting the most out of each day, every workout to be as good as it could be, every day in the nutrition to be as good as it could be, and to be eating at the right time, everything. I was fanatical about everything. So all those little things add up to making a big difference. So if my competitor's not paying so much attention over a long period of time, that can make a difference. Okay. But you know, not to mislead people here, it's not like everybody that can be a competitive bodybuilding champion. And this is where you get some of the frustration and misinformation and misuse of steroids, because a lot of guys just think, well, if I take more stuff, I'll look like that, you know. And these are the people that end up, you know, with potential problems, because the guys that win professional contests, these guys are all very genetically inclined to build in that kind of physique, you know. They've got genetic advantages, long muscle bellies, naturally low body fat, body structure that's balanced, all these kind of things. You can't get that from an injection or from a tablet, you know. You can get bigger, but you know, there's a lot of big guys around, but they don't win contests because they're not balanced.
What are your thoughts on the idea that's floating around the sport now, that these guys they've pushed it beyond a point where it's aesthetically appealing and they just look grotesque? I mean, do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, sometimes it can be, if the guys are not, if it's not in proportion and they're not in good condition. Yeah, but then I think these guys don't win contests. You know, there's a lot of big lumps walking around, but to win a contest, you've got to be in shape. You have to have the proportions where everything's balanced, and you know, you either got that or you haven't really. Do
you think the current state of bodybuilding is better or worse than when you left it?
I have to say I think it's worse, because I don't think the guys now they are really looking to, you know, to come into the contest bigger and fuller and everything, and they're sacrificing the condition that perhaps we used to go for in the 90s. Although I was known for my muscle mass, going into the contest, I wanted to come in like shredded, you know, super low body fat, separated and everything. I didn't want there to be any difference between me and a middleweight or a lightweight as far as the conditioning goes, you know. Where now you've got big guys who are winning pro contests, and you can find guys who are in better shape in amateur contests. I think if you're the ultimate in your sport, you should be the best in every department, not just bigger and whatever. You know, you should be bigger, you should be better balanced, and you should be in better condition.
Brian, you know, the thing that strikes me when we're speaking to Dorian is just pursuit of excellence in every aspect of what he does. And it's a common thing with the successful people that we interview, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's also a very, very intelligent guy. You know, I got off the phone with him the other night, and I was just like, okay, this is a smart guy. Yeah. And I was thinking about his diet, like in the off season, in the on season. It doesn't seem like it would be difficult for someone like you. You seem very focused, and you know exactly what
I was very focused. I knew what I wanted to do. You know, from the start, I wasn't thinking, hey, I want to be Mr. Olympia. That wasn't the first thing. But I actually came into the gym, I want to compete. I want to do this as a sport. This is not to impress my friends or impress the girls, or none of that was a motivation. Because if you look at my physique, I've got shots of my physique about 6 months after I started training. And everyone's like, I'd like to look like that. You know, a lot of people are like, I prefer to look like that than you did in a contest, because this is perfect. This is all I need, you know. So if I wanted a physique an impressive physique with good abdominal, I had that already. You know, so I didn't go into this sport because I wanted to get bigger because I was being picked on, or I wanted to impress the girls. And none of that was a motivation. You know, my motivation was like, this is a challenge, and I want to do this, and I want to do it like a sport. You know, and I always approached it as an athlete, as a sportsman, which was a little bit unique, I think.
Did you ever get tired of the training? I mean, you did this 6 times in a row and won Mr. Olympia. I know you had some injuries at the end. I mean, you can talk about those. Yeah. But was there a point where you just lose interest? I find that anyone has a passion for something, that passion has a half-life.
Yeah, well, I got to be honest. Like, 97 was my last competition, the Mr. Olympia. And I got a very severe injury a few weeks out. I tore the tendon, detached the tendon from my elbow. But I do remember, earlier in my preparation for this contest, I was starting to think to myself, man, this is starting to feel like a job. You know, this is starting to feel like a chore now. Where before it was total passion, you know, drive and passion. I want to, hey, this is exciting. Like, how far can I take this? You know, how far can a human body go? How far can I take my body? Like, I'm in uncharted territory here, because at the time no one had gone there and done that, you know. So that was all exciting, but it was starting to get a bit old, and because of the way I approached things, it was absolute 100%. I didn't ever go out to a nightclub and drink alcohol. I didn't ever go to the movies with my wife if it finished after 11, because I had to be home and eat my meal at 11:30. I had to be in bed at 12. I mean, this was for 10 years, this approach. No let up. Even after the competition, some guys would take a month off, even 2 months, and not even go to the gym. I mean, I was in there next week, you know. So it was intense, and I guess nobody can keep that up forever. So it was starting to get a little bit old the last year, and then I got the injury, which was very severe, and I had surgery and so on after that contest. Went back into training to see, you know, how things were like, and I had to be honest with myself, like, this is really affecting my training now. The one side of my body, I already had one injury on this side, now I had another one. The training was, you know, I wasn't going to be able to do it, and I didn't want to try to do it with one arm literally almost tied behind my back and go to the contest and then get beaten by somebody who probably wasn't as good as me, but just because I wasn't able to be at my best.
You did something that very few athletes do, which is you left at the top of your game.
Yeah, fortunately. And the thing for me, though, was it was a bit traumatic because it wasn't a choice. It wasn't planned. Everything else I'd done was strategic. It was planned. The contest, when I should do it, and it was planned out. It was military, you know. And here, boom, like, what are you going to do now, you know? But perhaps I'm philosophical about it. Perhaps that had to happen because my life had to change a direction. You know, it was very limited. So yes, I won the Mr. Olympia 6 times, and it's a huge part of my life. But there is other things in life. You know, and at that point I wasn't into anything else. So this was just I was in a tunnel, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you remind me of,
go ahead.
Well, you remind me. We're speaking to you, but I have a very good friend who is young kid, 22 years old, physique like nothing you've ever seen before, huge into bodybuilding. But I sometimes wonder that it's maybe it controls him. I mean, we'd go to a movie and he'd have chicken breasts in his pocket wrapped in tinfoil,
Right.
you know, and it's where do you draw the line, you know, and there's self-discipline, but where is the point where it's no longer fun, you know?
Yeah, I remember me and the guys, we used to go to the movies and stuff, and it was funny because when I went to the movies, I didn't want to take my chicken breast anywhere. I wanted some popcorn and a cornetto, you know,
Okay.
like everybody else. So sometimes I let my hair down, but that was about it, you know.
Okay.
So, but it depends on what your goals are, you know. Like very quickly, I got to be the best guy in the country here, and then to be professional and go and compete in America. So there's motivation there to restrict yourself like that and everything. If this is your career, if this is your business and everything, then you can justify it. But I see a lot of people doing it and neglecting everything, neglecting their jobs, their family relationships, all these things begin to suffer. And I'm like, well, why are you doing that? Because you're never going to win a contest, or, you know, if you do, it's going to be a Mr. whatever, Mr. Birmingham or something. It's not going to change your life, man. Is it worth it? So, you know, individuals have to answer that question themselves. But it was a checkpoint for me where I won the British Championship here, and then you get your professional status and go compete in America in my first professional contest. And I didn't really tell anybody, but I had this in my mind. I'm going to go to this professional contest. And I took a good period of time out, like 18 months from my British Championship win, to train for this first pro show. So I'm taking time out, I've got time here, I'm giving it my best shot. Listen, if I don't get in that top 5 of that contest, then it's telling me, mate, you haven't got what it takes. Yeah? You're not going to get 10th place one year and then next year you're going to win. Historically, you look at the competitions, the guys who are really good, they're usually really good from the start, it's apparent. So I put myself under that kind of pressure. And to be honest, you know, is it worth the sacrifice? Is it worth the sacrifice of the people around you? Is it worth the sacrifice because you're not having time and energy to put into business, into other things and so on? So I was like, if I don't get in the top 5 of this contest, then that shows me I don't really honestly have the potential to be a top professional. So I won't compete anymore. Of course I will train, and I had a gym at the time, I had my gym in Birmingham, and was like, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to train and everything like that, but I'm going to maybe open more gyms or something. And that takes time, and that takes focus, and that takes energy. But history shows I got second place, and it went from there. You know, the next year I won the Night of Champions, I got second place in the Mr. Olympia, and then the year after that I won. So, but yeah, I was trying to be honest with myself and say, hey, look, if you haven't got what it takes, then you might as well chill out and just enjoy the training and open some more gyms or do something like that, you know.
What was your 1998 and 1999 like? You know,
man, it was tough, you know, really tough mentally, because I'm getting up in the morning and what do I do now? What's my motivation? I'm going to the gym in the morning like I always used to, but what's after that? It was like, you know, fortunately I was able to get into a business and be involved in that, in the supplement business with a partner here in the UK. So I had something to go to, you know, and financially you got money coming in, but it's not the same. You know, this all-consuming thing as an athlete, I came to the conclusion that a lot of people seek to replace that. And I know a lot of high-level super athletes. You're talking about Sugar Ray Leonard here and people like that, Frank Bruno as well. And a lot of people get into the whole drugs thing. Wow. And I got the theory on that because they're looking for that high, that thing that you got from competition. But I realized pretty quickly, you're not going to replace that. You cannot replace that because it is what it is, yeah? And certainly drugs are not going to do it for you. So I changed my, hey, instead of crying about, like, I'm not doing this anymore, how about the 1,000,001 things you can do now? You know, you got time now.
And this is the way people need to think, dude. You know what I mean? Anyone whose life isn't working, this is the way they need to think.
And, you know, life changes, right? Nothing stays the same. And you can be stubborn if you want and try and fight against the energies of the universe or whatever that's telling you to go that way. but you want to go this way, and you're just going to end up hurting yourself and being frustrated, man. You got to go with the flow. So, you know, I'm a totally different person now from the guy that was competing. That was a one-dimensional person, because all I concentrated on, all I thought about, and all I knew was this sport. Of course, you know, I'm aware of other things going around, but it's a tremendous focus and kind of tunnel vision that you get, and then you come out of the tunnel. And then you got to find your balance, your way back in life, and that did take me a few years to do that, to be honest.
You know, speaking of energies of the universe, you told us just before the show started that you drank ayahuasca in the jungle in Brazil, which absolutely blew my mind. I never would have thought that you would have done that. Would you be willing to speak?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I went through a period of time like almost perhaps like a mental, spiritual, emotional crisis coming out of this whole competitive bodybuilding thing. And of course, I'm looking for answers, and I become curious about the whole thing, actually. You know, I started reading religion, reading a lot of stuff, and I started questioning a lot of things. And I guess I had time as well, because, you know, I had, you know, made nothing like, you know, don't get me wrong here, we're not talking soccer player figures here, right? But I made some decent money from the sport, and I was able to kick back for a little bit. And I think question the nature of reality and what life's all about and everything. Is a big question we should all be asking pretty much all the time.
Brian and I are asking it all the time.
You've got to be asking this question all the time, what we're here, what we're doing, what's it all about, you know, all this kind of stuff. So I realized that the nature of reality and whatever that's projected to us through religion, through education, through the media and everything, a lot of it's just bullshit. It's false, and the real reality is nothing like most people think, you know. And so one of the things that on this journey that I did, I went to Brazil. Actually met my future wife over there, and we went on a trip down the Amazon in Brazil. And I had the opportunity there to try ayahuasca, which is a plant over there that they used in ceremonies of shamans in the Indian. But if you look in ancient cultures all around the world, every ancient culture has a plant that they used in ceremonies, and they used to communicate, if you like, with the spirit world. There's a world beyond what we can see and touch here. This is nothing. This is just a minute slice of reality, but it's the only thing we can see and hear, and this is the only thing that we're aware of here. But ancient cultures know there's a lot more, and there's a way to get there, and there's a way to transport yourself there. So every culture, whether it be mushrooms, ayahuasca, there's tons of plants that ancient cultures use in order to do this. And I tried ayahuasca in Brazil. And I got to be honest, it was like something I would never do again, because it made me as sick as you can. I mean, this stuff was just like drinking paint stripper. It was just to get it down was a chore, you know. And I was, you know, the guy that gave me was an Indian. He said, "Listen, man," he said, "you're going to throw up." He said, "When I took it, I threw up. I shit myself and everything." So I just met my future wife, and I said, "Look, I'm going to take this stuff now." And she said, "Oh, I'll look after you." I said, "I'm probably going to puke and shit myself, so if you still fancy me after this, it's got to be on, you know." So yeah, she looked after, babysat me I slept laid out on a kind of a beach on the Amazon there, and took this stuff. But as far as like revelations and hearing things and seeing things, I didn't get too much. I was quite disappointed, to be honest. And then I looked more into this. And what I realized is all these plants, they're just all these plants contain the material that's the active material, and that's called DMT. Now, your body produces DMT. You've got a gland in your brain called the pineal gland. That releases DMT every night when you go to sleep. You go to dream, you transported to a different world, basically. And apparently when you die, then your body releases massive amounts of this. So in the end, after a few years, quite recently, like last year, I was able to get pure DMT powder and smoke that. And this is just a direct route straight to the spirit world. And, you know, it's not something that's easy to describe, the experience there. It's just, you got to kind of do it yourself.
What do you take away from those DMT experiences?
It's tremendous amount of information that you get in, and when you go there, you go to a place that's full of energy, and it's colors, it's numbers, it's geometric shapes, and what you realize is that everything is connected. The thing that I got is everything is one, and one is everything. Everything's connected, and we're all part of it, you know. We feel like individuals, but we're all part of the collective, just experiencing itself. You know, your infinite consciousness experiencing itself through Brian. I am through Dorian, and so on and so on and so on.
You know,
so
Brian,
I realize we're all connected, and sometimes it's, you know, in this world, in this reality, it's hard for me to believe, because I see some people and I think, that, how is he connected to me? He's just a nice total prick, you know.
He's a total douchebag.
But it's just because he doesn't know, and he's so removed from what he is, you know. I guess that's what it is, and that's the biggest thing. And I was spoken to by, if you want, by God, but it wasn't. It was me as well, you know. It was like the higher me talking to me and telling me, like, the biggest problem we have here really on this planet, on this plane, is the ego, you know. The ego gets in the way of everything, and the ego is not really you, you know. The ego is just a construct we've formed in this,
self, right?
yeah.
Was ego what built your whole career?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, initially, why would you want to be the best in the world at something, you know? I guess it must be your ego. But the ego can get in the way of a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't regret anything I did, because it was tremendous for me. But not only that, I've been able to touch a lot of people. You know, even talking about this, how many people are going to listen to this and think something and do something? It's going to have an influence. So I got thousands of people, literally thousands and thousands of people around the world saying, Dorian, thank you. You know, you put me on a path. I went to the gym because of you, and because I went to the gym, it made me a better person, made me more positive, and on and on and on and on. So, and I actually feel a responsibility now with this position. You asked me about steroids. I feel a responsibility to be totally honest and just say it how it is, and everything else that I know, I just got to put it out there, and if it helps somebody, it helps them. It's not going to hurt them.
Maybe it's time that, your fans learn about, you know, ayahuasca and DMT and consciousness and breaking down your ego. You know, maybe that's your phase two.
That's the new message. I mean, I'm in a new place now, so I'm able to give new information. I wouldn't have known this 2 years ago, or at least I wouldn't be able to speak as confidently about it. You know,
Brian, you know, I just have to say that this is one of the coolest days of my whole life. If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting with Dorian Yates talking about psychedelics, I would have said you were a stark raving lunatic. This has just been
let me go
awesome.
somewhere with this now, and because the pineal gland in your brain, which not a lot of people, ask me 10 years ago what a pineal gland, I don't know what a pineal gland is. Well, it's a tiny gland in your brain, but there is a concerted effort to stop that functioning in everybody. Yeah, because the powers that be, the small group of people that control the world and control the nature of what we believe is reality, they know this is like our antennae to touch the spirit world, the real reality, you know. And you can look it up, you can search it, you can find it on the internet. Pictures of the pineal gland that's totally covered in a calcium-like deposit to stop it functioning. And this is from the fluoride in the water, in the tap water. Not only is it stopping you from connecting with your higher self and functioning, it's also a poison. So please, like, don't drink the tap water. No? You know, I never drink tap water. I don't even use it for cooking or in my kettle or anything.
Good for you. You know, during my second ayahuasca experience last year in London, I felt my third eye, my pineal gland, start to reactivate.
Yeah.
I could feel it like pulsing, and it was, I think, was probably shedding the calcification.
Exactly. I felt exactly the same thing. I didn't know what it was at first. When I took DMT, just before I go into you know, you kind of sit back and go into a dreamlike state. I mean, you know, when you take DMT, same with ayahuasca, I can talk to you and you can respond. You're still in the room, but you're not. You're somewhere else as well.
Why do you think these powers that be are doing that? Why do you think they're trying to suppress the functioning of our pineal glands?
Because if we all realized how powerful we are and the nature of reality, we wouldn't be so easy to control. And it's all about control and controlling people. And you know, if you're a conscious person, you're not going to go across the other side of the world and shoot somebody just because you're getting paid. You know, you're going to start questioning things. You're going to start. They're not going to be able to control people if everybody was able to think freely and to realize, you know, what we are and who we are. It would be uncontrollable.
Yeah,
That's why.
I've been doing
That's
some
why
thinking about
the
this.
whole there's a concerted effort to dumb down the population. You can even see it with the TV and the magazines. It's just all bullshit now. X Factor and who's fucking who and on magazines and shit. Who cares about that? What's that got to do? How about the children that just got blown up in Afghanistan and innocent people? And how about what's going on in the Gaza Strip and everything? But you don't see that. You know, people. They're just fed bullshit. Unless they really become conscious and ask questions and go out there and look, it's not going to be fed to you through the mainstream, you know?
Yeah.
And everything that's presented through the mainstream is accepted as reality. You know, boom, 9/11. Osama bin Laden did it. Oh, okay, then that's the truth then. Well, no, if you look clearly, it's total bullshit, you know?
Brian, you said you were having thoughts on that.
Yeah, I try to think about this, and I mean, the only problem I have with conspiracy theories is I just wonder if there's a secret number of people that can actually keep it quiet. But I do think that the reason that psychedelics...
there's no conspiracy theory.
Right.
There's a conspiracy fact, and it's
conspiracy.
documented. If you care to look it up, you can find it.
I think that what I think is that it's not in the capitalistic interests of many of these companies, or even like Dorian said, the army, or all the people that sell McDonald's and want you to get the better sneakers and want you to do all these things. But once you start taking psychedelics, you start questioning being part of that Western consumer role. And I think the pharmaceutical companies and just everyone in general doesn't have any interest economically.
Dude, I'm holding back tears. I'm so proud of you.
No,
I'm so proud of you, bro.
If we do that, that's my theory. I just think that people kind of try to hang on to the businesses that they have.
Well, if I said to you that there is a cure for cancer, or in fact there's many cures for cancer that's out there and freely available, how would you feel about that?
I would listen.
Because there are people out there that are curing their own cancer, and the whole cancer industry is just, that's what it is.
It's an industry.
It's a massive industry. Why would you want to cure people? You know, even the cancer charities, I refuse to have anything to do with them because it's a business. You know, you've got a guy called Rick Simpson, Dr. Rick Simpson in the States, and he's cured literally thousands of people. Guess what he's cured them with? It's going to freak you out. No, it's cured with THC, which is an active compound from marijuana.
No way.
He breaks the plant down and concentrates it into oil. And people that with terminal cancer, they've been told they're terminal, have been cured. And I'm sure there's other cures out there as well, but it's not in the interest. If you know, marijuana is a plant, you can't patent it. There's no profit there.
You know, I don't want to go too much on about ayahuasca, and we just did a big show, which I told my experience in Peru, but I've just come back from Peru, and there was a very clear message that was given to me when I was during my fourth ceremony by the jungle, and it was saying that where you come from, people are sick. Like the world is sick.
We're sick because we're disconnected. We're totally disconnected from where we should be. That's what I think. And people got no idea what's really going on or what's the reality, because their reality is fed to them through schools, religion, and media, and all those are controlled organizations. And I think it's systematic, you know.
How do we break that cycle? Or do you have plans to try to educate people?
Well, you know, I'm just being me, and I speak to a lot of people and do what I can do, and I just try to touch somebody with something that will spark something, will start them questioning things and looking for themselves, you know, because I'm not right about everything, and I don't know everything, you know, but I know things are not right. I've always knew that, but I know it more clearly now the older I'm getting, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. You were talking about, you look at X Factor and all these things on TV, and Nick said the other day when he saw one of those free papers in the tube, he was just like, he didn't want to look at it because it's like all this negativity.
Well,
like,
I look at it like a poisonous snake that's trying to bite me.
Like a poisonous, because it wants to suck you in, but trying to get in all this. She did this, and he did this, and he did that, and you know that's why we do this show. Really, we want to give people.
Yeah. What about
an
your
option.
life? What about your life? Instead of reading about other people's bullshit lives, you know, it's bullshit anyway. Because I can pick up one newspaper that says Jordan's with this guy, and then another one that says Jordan's not with this guy. I don't give a fuck anyway, but you know, it's just bullshit.
And when you read all that crap about celebrities making up and breaking up and doing cocaine and all the chaos in their own lives, you're taking it in through your senses, and then you start to repeat that same cycle. And people wonder why they can't hold a relationship, or they wonder why there's so much.
Well, these are held up. These people are held up for us to admire. These are our role models. These are the idols, right? That's what they're supposed to be. I mean, what kind of role model is that? There's much better things out there, and unsung people who are doing good things. You know, I'd rather read about them.
What's next for you in the next year, 5 years? You know, what keeps you excited?
Well, I'm still involved in bodybuilding a lot, actually. You know, still traveling around the world, speaking to people. I got my own nutrition line now, DY, Dorian Yates Nutrition. So we sell that all around the world. Last year I was in Brazil, Australia, Canada, you know, some places in the US, some other countries in Europe. I've been, you know, so I'm still traveling, which and meeting a lot of people and everything, which is exciting. And now when I'm traveling, if I can't make it to a gym, or if I have to eat food that I don't really, so what, you know? Now, so I can enjoy it now, actually. One of the tremendous things that I had through bodybuilding is actually, you know, the experience of being able to travel all around the world and have friends. I got friends in Australia that I can call. I can go there anytime, all around the world, and you know, it's made me a more rounded person. I was a guy from Birmingham, you know, and you're only. It depends what you're exposed to, you know, and you're only get exposed to a certain amount of thing if you stay in one place or with one, you know, one culture, one group of people. But I've been all around the world and experienced different things, and I'm sure it's had a huge effect on the way I look at things.
What do you miss about the bodybuilding community, and what don't you miss?
I don't really miss anything because of the competitive thing. I did that, you know. I love to train, but I don't do just bodybuilding training now. I don't train real heavy. I do a lot of circuits with weights, so it's kind of, you know, it's cardio, but it's muscle building as well. Sometimes I'll train with some martial arts guys, some fighters and stuff. And sometimes I do a bit more conventional bodybuilding, but I love to train. I love to go in the gym and train. So I'll always do that, you know. That's the part of bodybuilding that I love. But to be honest, going to watch bodybuilding competitions and stuff like that, that's not something that I choose to do anymore.
But you were always kind of removed from the I mean, your nickname was the Shadow,
Yeah.
right? Can you explain that nickname?
Well, the Shadow started because when I started competing in mid-80s over here, and it could have been a marketing plan, I guess, a strategic plan, but it wasn't. It's just Dorian being Dorian. You know, I'm more extrovert now, perhaps, and more confident and so on. But when I was a young guy, I was kind of introvert. So I wasn't a guy who, you know, shouted about himself how great he was or went everywhere and you'd know. If I walked in a room, I'd be the quiet guy. You wouldn't really notice me that much. And what I did is I trained and I was getting better and better and better. And everyone and people, you know, there was no internet then. So but it's a small community, so word gets around about this guy from Birmingham. I was a young kid, he looks great, and then I went to a competition and I won it. I actually went to a novice competition. It was a small one, but I went there and it just freaked people out. They're like, "What are you doing in this novice competition? You're way too good." I'm like, "Yeah, it was my first show." And why aren't you in the heavyweight class? I don't think I'm good enough now. It's my first show, you know. Not good enough? You're probably better than our best guy we've got right now. I mean, what the hell, where did you come from, you know? And then I disappear again. Go back to the gym. Nobody hear anything from me. Just go back to the gym and train and train and train. And of course there's rumors, but nobody knows. And boom. Then I turn up at the next competition, blow everyone away and off again. Go back to my gym and just isolate myself. And I did the same thing as a professional. I went to America. And what the hell? Who's this guy from? Where is it? England? What the hell? Boom. Went back to England. Don't know anything. Can't see me. So
Sounds like a genius, masterful
it was
marketing ploy.
It was a genius psychological plan to psych out my competition, but it wasn't. It was just me being me. And when you get to the professional ranks, and especially in the 90s, the whole thing was really around Gold's Gym in Venice, California.
Right.
That's where all the pros trained and lived, and there was a huge community there. So these guys could see each other every day. Brian's not looking that good. It looks a bit fat. What do you think? This kind of Dorian. We don't know anything about him. And that's kind of scary. Like, is he looking good? Is he looking? What's happening? I don't know. Nobody knows. That kind of thing.
That's cool.
So, it wasn't a strategy, but it was just me being me, but it did have an effect,
Brian, I think I'm going to start calling you the Shadow for never answering your text messages.
Oh, really? It's such a cool name, How many head games go on backstage, when you go to these competitions?
Well, you had the Pumping Iron film, right? I don't know if you've seen that with Arnold in there, and that's just like,
but
it's just dramatized for the movie, right? I guess this whole thing could be a bit boring to an outsider, so they tried to add a bit of drama in there, but not much really. Excuse me, because by the time you get to the competition, look, you either got the goods or you don't. It doesn't matter what I say or do or whatever, but still, I had my way of doing things. I remember I competed in the first Mr. Olympia competition against Lee Haney. Now, Lee Haney was Mr. Olympia when I started training. And now I'm competing against this guy.
That's so cool.
But I'd changed my point of view at that point to when I got there. He was no longer Lee Haney, my idol. He was Lee Haney, the guy I want to beat now. But I do remember being backstage there and pumping up and everything, and he was close to me, And he still had his track top on, and he was pumping up and everything. Looking over. Then he took off his track top with his back facing me. And I was like, oh, shit, So I was like, right. So after that, I always stayed cover until like the last minute, and I could feel all the other guys waiting and watching and till the last minute to see what I was looking like. And I'd leave it till the last minute, and then boom. And this, oh, no, shit, you could feel that going around. So I guess that was, and I always try to have my own little spot, my little changing room and stuff. Things like that,
Little tips. You're known as being a super intense guy when you do train, and I was just wondering where that comes from. I know a lot of guys that are top bodybuilders come from tough childhoods and broken homes, and they use that some way to fuel themselves. And I was wondering
I didn't have a easy time of it as a kid and stuff like that. So perhaps that's where it comes from, the motivation. But it was always like a pride thing for me, like. I can train harder, I push myself more than everybody else. It was like a pride thing as well. And the same with the diet, it was a discipline. And if I broke that diet, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I would have let myself down. So this whole thing was not about building, it was about building physique and about building the best physique and everything, but it was beyond that. It was a mental thing. It was almost like mastery over yourself, because who wants to go and put 600 pounds on your back and squat up and down until you're nearly puking? Who wants to do that,
Brian, you said something to me once. You said, I don't believe that all men are created equal. And when I meet a guy like Dorian, I completely understand that. There's very few people that have the genetic, spiritual, physical, mental disposition to be able to do things.
The other thing I noticed is that you see a lot of top athletes and people in any field, and it's usually the ones that are competing with themselves. That get that success, because they're not really trying to prove it to everyone. They're just trying to prove it to themselves.
That was pretty much what I had. I had guys that I competed against as professionals that I had to beat, but when you're number one, that's not so much a motivation as before, because you already beat this guy now. So now you're the guy that everyone's looking at. Everyone's chasing. So who do you chase now? Chase yourself. Try to beat yourself, And the same thing with the diet, like every instinct, every impulse is telling you, you must eat now. And you're saying, no, I'm not going to eat now because that's not my plan. I'm going to override you. No. So it's a mental discipline, you know. And as I said before, I mean, the training and stuff is hard, but for me it was fun. I enjoyed that physical challenge, so that's hard. But the hardest thing is the diet. Mentally, is very hard, and that separates the men from the boys, I think, you know. Like, there was a lot of big guys around that never made it to that stage, you know, because they couldn't handle that, the diet.
Wow. What are your thoughts on Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Well, they say you've got anything good to say, don't say anything, so...
We'll get that off the record.
I mean, let's be serious. Arnold has done more than any individual to bring attention to bodybuilding, first through pumping iron, and then through the, you know, big mainstream movies and everything. So he gave the sport a big boost through that, so we have to be thankful for that. But honestly, I don't know him really that well. We had a bit of a, well, he felt that he had to attack modern bodybuilding and myself as the leader of modern bodybuilding in the mid-90s through the magazines, and I did a reply to him, which kind of, he shot himself in the foot because he was criticizing myself and the sport and everything. And I just replied, like, you know, I don't know how he can criticize me or the sport because he doesn't know me. I've never met him. I've never spoken to him personally. And he doesn't know anything about the sport because he doesn't come to watch the competitions. He never goes to Mr. Olympia. Arnold does exactly what's good for Arnold. So at that point, he wasn't coming to the competitions. And I made the response in the magazine. And I think the feedback they got, male-wise and everything at the time, was pretty much 100% in my favor because Arnold's achieved a lot, and perhaps because he has a huge ego, you know. And there's a guy called Mike Mensa. I don't know if you're familiar with Mike Mensa. Mike Mensa and Arnold were big rivals, and Arnold won the 1980 Mr. Olympia over Mike Mensa. And it was very, very controversial because Arnold came and bowled up at the last minute and entered the contest when the rules clearly stated that you had to enter at some time period before, but the rules were bent because it was Arnold. And Arnold's friend was a promoter, and a lot of Arnold's friends were on the judging panel, and Arnold won the contest. And pretty much everybody in the sport knows and accepts that he shouldn't have won that contest. So it wasn't probably that great for him. So Mike Mensa and Arnold had this rivalry, I guess, from there, and I was associated with Mike. I trained with him, and I knew Mike. And Mike told me, Arnold Schwarzenegger is very aware of you, and he's going to be really bothered because you're better than him. And actually, I couldn't believe it. I was like, come on, man, he ain't going to give a shit. He's done what he's done. He's Arnold. I mean, now he's in the movies. He's a big star. He's a multi-millionaire. He's not going to care about who's Mr. Olympia right now. And Mike Mensa said to me, trust me, you don't know him. He cares, and he cares a lot. And that became apparent because a couple of years later, I got the attack in the magazine.
I wanted to actually ask you about Mike Mensa because, you know, he seems like such a progressive guy. Like, he was always looking at different ways to train, and he was thinking out the box, you know. And I wanted to know what your opinion was on his death. I know he died of a heart attack at a relatively young age. Do you think it was because he was pushing himself? I know he was studying philosophy all the time and doing these incredibly intense workouts. And do you think he just pushed too hard? What do you think the story was behind that?
Well, Mike, you know, I think after 1980 Mr. Olympia, and anyone that knows Mike knows, and when I met him, I was very struck because Mike was like my idol when I started training. And, you know, this subject came up very quickly after I met him about the 1980 Mr. Olympia and Arnold. And I could see that this was 10, 11, 12 years later. Still, this was like right, you know, it was in the forefront of his mind and really, really bothered him. And I do know he had problems with amphetamine use. And that, you know, he said, you know, that didn't help him psychologically. And I think, I'm not sure of all the facts, but I think he was sectioned once or twice, something like that. You know, they heard stories about him doing erratic things. But actually, when I met him and the time I spent with him, he was very lucid, very clear, very intelligent guy. But sometimes when someone's very intelligent and always questioning things, do get these, you know, these problems. So I don't know if, you know, amphetamine use had any, you know, I know it's not good for your heart and everything. So maybe maybe it had some effect. I don't know, but the time that I spent with him, he seemed okay. He just I could tell he was really bothered about that 1980 thing, and he hadn't let go of it, which is not a good thing. And he was training a lot of people in Gold's Gym. That was his thing, his training business. But he didn't train anything himself. He was, he got a bit of a belly on him and stuff like that, which I kind of find hard to understand, because for me, I'll always train. That's, someone pissed me off because I felt, I didn't win a contest or whatever. So what? That's a contest. But hey, training, exercise is has huge mental benefits. It keeps you.
Brian's like that. I know. Like if you don't work out, like
it's like a natural high, right? Your body releases natural endorphins, painkillers. You feel good. Human body is supposed to do things. It's supposed to exercise. It's not supposed to sit around all day. Like, we've only done that for the last couple of 100 years. Not even that, perhaps. We have thousands and thousands of years. We had to work. We had to hunt. We had to survive. The body is meant to do that. You're meant to use it. If you don't use it, it'll break down. So yeah, I really don't know what caused his untimely death. And the freaky thing about it is his brother Ray passed away like within days of Mike passing away. And
wow.
His brother passed
Maybe
away.
Arnold Schwarzenegger had them assassinated.
I don't know, man. Right. You said it, not me.
Now we're going to get sued. You know what I was just thinking? I think Dorian should start his own podcast.
Yes.
Definitely.
Or he should come back on ours at least.
Yeah, that's true. You call it Dorian Real.
Yeah.
But you really should. You can have guests. And
well,
talk to your
I do.
fans
I got a
on
Facebook page, and I put a lot of posts on there that, that start people thinking. I had a lot of people write back to me and say, "Hey, listen, shit, you've started me on a hole. I've gone down the rabbit hole now. Once they see something that's not right, I've done a lot of posting about the 9/11 and the banking system and." Things that are presented us through the media over here about situations abroad and on all that. It's like, it's so removed from reality,
I think people are going to be blown away, especially talking about, the DMT and all that. Just, it's great to see someone like you with new ideas,
Well, like I said, I do my monthly column with Muscular Development magazine, and we covered... we covered the steroids in bodybuilding and my experience and my views and all that stuff, and I also did one on marijuana use in athletes and what the facts are there. And I think there's a 30-year study they did in California on lung damage from smoking marijuana, and what was the result was they didn't find any. They were looking for it and expecting it, but they didn't find any. My point in the article there was a lot of athletes use marijuana to relax, whatever, So, and that's something that's been demonized falsely through the media. And, if I tell people like, hey, marijuana can cure cancer, they just totally freak out, because it's like, what are you talking about? This drug, this dope, this, this negative thing that I've heard about, and these are my beliefs that have been given to me, and I'll hold on to these, It's... like everything else, the reality is sometimes quite different.
I think a lot of people are changing their views on cannabis, but it's slowly moving east, and it's going to take, I think, another 5 or 10 years to get to the UK. I mean,
probably,
we see states like
you got 2 states now in the US where it's legal.
Yeah.
You also got, I think Portugal have decriminalized all drugs now.
Man, next time you're in the States, Dorian, you got to go on the Joe Rogan show. Joe would have a field day chatting to him.
Oh, Joe Rogan, he's cool, man. I've read a lot of his stuff, and
Joe would love you.
Yeah, I think Joe is a guy that probably 5 years ago, if you'd asked him, he wouldn't have believed any of this stuff. I don't think he even tried marijuana 5 years ago because of his views, Yeah.
He was a very late bloomer on that, because he was told the same thing. Pot's for these loser potheads, marijuana's for this type of person. Even Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, look, it's going to make you lazy and achieve nothing in life.
Yeah.
Look at me, I'm a perfect example of that. You're going to be unmotivated and not going to achieve anything in life. Of course, bullshit,
Well, Joe's spread the word about this just by talking about it. I think the more that, Nick and I started talking about ayahuasca about 10 months ago, and people hear the stuff you're talking about DMT now. It kind of starts the cycle of change,
For sure.
But it's tricky over here. You were saying that in England there's no respect for the bodybuilding as a sport.
Absolutely. I mean, how many 6 times consecutive world champions do we have in any sport in this country? I don't know don't think we have any, right? So during the 90s, I was this guy. But any attention from the media, they wanted to put a negative slant on it straight away. My first experience with the media was a mainstream tabloid, and they came to do an interview with me, and the reporter spent like the best part of an afternoon with me. And I thought I had some rapport going with this guy, and I thought, I could get my point across and everything. And one of the questions he asked me was like, what do you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his success and everything like that? I'm like, yeah, that's cool, that's great, that's Arnold though, I have no ambitions to be a movie star or a billionaire or in politics. That's not me, right? That's Arnold. I just want to be the best bodybuilder I can be and see how far I can take this and how far, that's my thing. When I read the newspaper, it was like, I'm going to be bigger and better and richer than Arnold. Like, this fucking nothing else is total opposite to what I was talking about. So then, from that point on, during any newspaper, magazine interviews, I always had a dictaphone and I taped it, just in case I came up against this situation again. And then, you probably know yourself, the media is a small world. So as soon as one newspaper or one TV program found out about it, it's like they were all calling me, yeah? And there was a couple of TV breakfast shows that called me up, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll be interested in coming on there. Okay, yeah, but I want to come on with my clothes on. And I want to sit down and I want to talk to you. And if afterwards you want me to pose or you want to show some footage from competition, I'm like, that's great, yeah? Oh, no. We want you to come on and do your posing stuff and everything. I'm like, listen, if I come on there as a performing monkey in my briefs, yeah, I'm just going to be there as a spectacle for you to point at, and I'm not going to be able to get my point across. I have no interest in being on TV, which blew their mind. They think everyone wants to be on TV and they'll sell their soul to go on TV. I was like, personally, I have no interest in being on TV. I don't need it to promote myself. I'm already where I am in my sport. But I would like to go on there in order to get my point of view across and to educate people about the sport and what it's about. And I need to be able to talk to do that, yeah? I need to sit down and talk. And the guy, he didn't understand me. And I said, look, at the time, Paul Gascoigne was the most famous soccer player in the country, Gaza, right? I said, if you invite Gaza onto your show, you don't want him to come with his football kit on and do tricks with his ball behind while you make comments or something. No, you're going to sit him down, he's going to wear a suit, you're going to talk to him. And I just want the same respect, And they wouldn't do that, so I wouldn't go on the program.
Good for you. Just consider how much more effort and maybe you could even argue skill went into what Dorian did to achieve what he achieved in comparison to a guy who kicks a ball around the field. Soccer, don't get me wrong, football's great and those guys are good athletes and all, but it's just incomparable. It's just not the same league.
Well, once you hear him talk about it, when they see these images, these bodies they don't understand.
Well, that's exactly my point. If you look at a bodybuilder and you ask people, what do you think about this? Of course, you're going to get a ton of negative comments from the average person because they're just looking at a picture, yeah. But to be honest, I've never really had any negative reactions from the public. People on the street and everything come and talk to me. They want to learn. Wow, what do you do? And they want to learn. Oh, can I lose this? What can I do? It's always very, very positive. But it just seems the media, all they want to talk about is the sensational or the negative. They want to talk about steroids or something like that because it's more sensational. Maybe it makes better news. But how about telling the truth? That'd probably be a good idea,
Yeah. Do you enjoy getting older?
Yeah, I do because, the body gets older and it doesn't work as good as it used to. But mine's still pretty good because I've been looking after it. So I can still go in the gym and out-train 25 years old. No problem.
Really?
Yeah, no problem. They don't want to do it. They don't want to come with me in the gym. Trust me.
I hear legs are your specialty. Nobody wants to train
because legs are, that's the toughest training. It's the biggest muscles in your body. Right. It's a huge oxygen debt you get and everything. Right. So, it's tough. You feel very nauseous and stuff when you really push to the limit. So most people don't want to do that with me. But the whole thing of getting older is hopefully getting wiser, and getting more in touch and getting nearer to what reality is. I think that's I got my business and stuff. I'm concentrate on that, but just to enjoy life and traveling, experiencing new things. That's where I'm at now, and trying to evolve as a person. I think I've evolved tremendously since I left left the sport, and been through a period of probably depression after that. and then you get out of that, and you know, a lot of questions. But now I'm in a good place now. I think, you know, good,
Yeah, man,
good,
you're
a good
definitely in a
balance,
good place.
a good understanding of life. I got just recently remarried a couple of years ago to an amazing, beautiful woman from Brazil who's also very spiritual. So she helped me on my pathway there as well, I think.
Do you think your injury in some way was a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, I see it as that now, because if that injury didn't happen, I don't know, maybe I would have carried on.
Might have faded
you know,
away, you know?
Who knows, you know, like maybe it had to happen to Dorian. You know, maybe it had to be, boom, that's finished for you now, mate. Yeah. Otherwise, maybe I would have stayed on too long. Who knows, you know?
When you refer to Dorian, you were kind of referring to that Mr. Olympia Dorian, as opposed to who you are now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, because maybe that guy would have just carried on. I don't know. You know, we'd all like to be able to control and plan our lives and everything, but you can only do it to a degree. You know, sometimes the outside forces and circumstances come along for whatever reason, and it's usually for the best reason. You know, things can be very, you know, like retiring from a job or a sport, or, you know, losing a relationship. All these things are upsetting and negative at the time, but later on you might look back and say, hey, that was all for the best, you know.
Yeah.
Comes back to non-attachment, which is, you know, the foundation of Buddhism. That you hold on to is going to hurt you, so try not to hold on to anything too tight, right?
Wow, that's deep. You know, I just got a couple more questions, and we'll wrap this thing up. Something we ask people a lot on this show is if you could pick up the phone right now and make a phone call to 20-year-old Dorian and give him a few words of advice. What would you say to him, and would he listen to you?
Double the dosage.
20-year-old Dorian, I wouldn't tell him anything, because, you know, I was on a pathway there. The only thing, you know, but then you go and we're changing things, right? I could go back and tell Dorian, listen, you know, you need to take a bit more slack. You need to take a bit more time off. If you get little injuries, you need to take care of that. And if you need to take time off, you need to take time off. And you can chill out a little bit more. You can, you know, you can enjoy life a little bit more. I could have done all that, and maybe would affect, you know, maybe I would have avoided those injuries. But if I'd avoided those injuries, then we're on a whole new pathway. So I'm just going to say, you know, whatever happened perfectly. That's the way it's meant to happen, and I'm where I'm supposed to be. So I wouldn't go back and change anything.
Fair enough.
Good answer.
And what advice would you have for that 20-year-old out there who's thinking about a career in bodybuilding? What would
Don't
you
think
say?
about a career. It's too young. You're too early to think about a career.
Okay.
How many people genuinely make a career out of professional bodybuilding? So you can pick up the magazines and you can look, and it looks all glamorous, and these guys all look like superstars and they're promoted as such. But how many of them really make a career, a real professional? That means that that's your sole source of income and you're doing well off that. 10 guys in the world?
Wow.
10.
Wow.
10, 12, whatever, somewhere around there, that, you know, they're bringing in a really good income.
Same in jiu-jitsu, if
you know,
that.
You know, if you look at the Mr. Olympia, I think the first place is about $150,000 or 175, something like that. But you get down to 10th place, 11th place, 12th place, you're looking at a couple of grand, you know. It's like, you don't even pay your expenses.
They spend more than that on chicken breasts, right?
You know, the image that's presented is perhaps not reality, you know. So if you're going to give up everything, you better make sure that, you know, you're getting something back. A 20-year-old guy thinking about a career in the sport, don't think about a career yet. You know, if you enjoy doing it, enjoy doing it. Set yourself some realistic short-term goals. You know, all right, you might want to be a professional bodybuilder, you might want to be a Mr. Olympia, but put that maybe sometime in the future. Right now, you're 20 years old. You know, you need to build your foundation. You need to compete and win a competition, and a little one, you need to be in the bigger one. If you can get to be the best guy in England, and be the Mr. Britain, and be the best guy here, British champion, then you can maybe start thinking about it. But I don't even think about it before then, you know, because it's an illusion. It's not there. There's only a few guys that can do it. You have to be very, very good to do that. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world probably thinking the same thing, you know. I'm not being negative, saying you can't do it, but when I was 21, 22, 23, start competing, I wasn't thinking about, being Mr. Olympia at that point. And I was very, obviously it became apparent quite early on when I was competing that I was, was ahead of everybody else.
Wow. I just wanted to say thanks to one of our interns, which is Diego Ferreira, who put us in touch with you. And I know you're still doing
Ferreira?
Yeah.
That's my wife's name.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's his surname. He was a Brazilian guy. He went up and trained with you. I know you're still doing personal training.
Diego. Yeah,
Diego.
Okay.
But how do people get a hold of you? You are still doing personal training sessions.
Yeah,
as well, right?
I do a limited amount of personal training because I do most of it here in the UK, and I'm not here all the time. But DorianYates.net, that's my main website. Everyone, you can go on there. You can contact me through there. You can make requests for personal training. You can read about my nutrition. Everything. If you go through that site, you can pretty much get everything.
Okay, and your Twitter is Dorian_Yates.
Is it?
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. And on the topic of ayahuasca, if you want to listen to Nick's recent experiences in Peru, we've just published Ayahuasca, My Heart of Darkness, which is Nick's 2-hour description of his time in Peru just 2 weeks ago. You should
I might have a
watch that.
listen to that myself.
Yeah, and as usual, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find us on londonreal.tv. We've got a great forum there. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and if you're listening to this on iTunes, you can come see our faces and see the extremely good-looking Dorian on YouTube. Our channel is London
Checks
Real
in the mail there.
TV. But I mean, for 50, that's pretty good. So,
Man, that episode was just fucking fantastic.
Epic.
Epic.
If you would have told me Dorian would have been dropping science on DMT yesterday, I would have slapped you in the
Yeah, I would
head.
have laughed in your face.
Well, I kind of get a feeling we were going to go there at some point. I don't know why, but
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was all good. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Dorian.
Thanks for coming down. Really appreciate it.
great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Really
And
appreciate it.
hopefully we'll do it again, right?
For sure we
Yeah,
will.
I'd love to have you down
For sure
anytime.
we will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Until then,
It's all about the journey.
it's about the journey indeed. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Welcome to London.
And the energy became very dark. So there was a thick negative energy in that room.
You remember this?
Yes, I remember that. I left it out of it. It was before. It was around the time of the infinite mental loop I'd entered into.
Okay, when
And
you were-
I can't remember.